Sadly, all good things must come to an end, and we've had to leave behind the glorious roads of the Peak District. Instead, we're in much more everyday driving conditions now, and sadder still, this is exactly where the WRX starts to reveal its shortcomings. For a start, the lack of strength at low revs of the engine is really frustrating in traffic. You don't have to travel all that far on the motor to realise that this is a really noisy car. But worst of all is the ride. As you can tell from the amount that camera is shaking about while we try and film this, it's really firm. And there are times the ride is genuinely uncomfortable. To make matters worse, the ergonomics are pretty dreadful too. Take the trip computer for example. It may look nice and smart on top of the dashboard there, but it's controlled by this horrible little button hidden away underneath the hazard warning light switch. It looks and feels cheap, low quality and dated, and there's far too much of this cabin you can say that of. Anyway, that's enough of my complaints for the moment, as we're just about to reach our next destination, Prodrive, the company behind all of Subaru's rallying success and the company that built those two fabulous cars we saw at the start of our journey. We've come here to follow the tragic story of Richard Burns, who won the World Rally Championship in 2001 at the wheel of a Subaru Impreza, only for a brain tumour to strike him down a mere 4 years later at the age of just 34. However, his name lives on through the Richard Burns Foundation, a charity that was set up to commemorate him by some of his closest friends and colleagues. Among those is Prodrive's technical director David Lapworth, who worked very closely with Richard and who's been a trustee of the foundation right from day one.
Richard was professional, he was very determined, he kept things simple, didn't like to make things complicated, so in many ways one of the easiest to work with, although still demanding. I think most people would say that Richard's strength was the fact that he thought a lot about what he was doing. There's no doubt when it came to the illness he went about it in the same way. If you go back to the very early days, when we set the foundation up, there were two things going on in our minds. One was that we should try and remember Richard, and Richard's experience and some of his comments from his illness was that what must it be like for ordinary people? We've been working with Brain and Spine Foundation for quite a long time. Peter Hamlin, the guy that more than anybody looked after Richard through his illness, is very much involved in the Brain and Spine Foundation. But we focus now on working with them because it's so obviously a fit with Richard. We're trying to work on some projects now to get more help to people who suffer the same sort of thing.
It's entirely appropriate that we should have visited Prodrive, and not just because of the Richard Burns connection. You see, what's happening at Prodrive is symbolic of the world that this WRX inhabits. Prodrive is moving on, leaving the premises it's been in for the best part of 30 years, and moving to a new site just up the road that will better accommodate its growing business interests. In just the same way, the car market has moved on, and people who are buying fast cars nowadays have much higher expectations than they did in the Impreza's heyday. At the beginning of our journey, we wondered if a car like this still had a place in the modern motoring world. The answer is yes, but for an increasingly small number of absolutely dedicated driving enthusiasts. The car certainly has an old school appeal, but it's a one-trick pony. For the same amount of money as this car costs, you could buy something that's easier to live with, cheaper to run, more comfortable and more sophisticated. We're not quite ready to consign the WRX to the pages of automotive history yet, but the day we do is coming ever closer.